Are you running a business with multiple branches and wondering how to distribute input tax credit effectively using Input Service Distributor mechanism under GST? Today, let's simplify one of the most misunderstood concepts under GST, which is Input Service Distributor. Hello everyone, I am Pravesh Rathi. I am a practicing chartered accountant. So today we will discuss. Let's start our discussion with a brief introduction about Input Service Distributor, when and how ISD comes in place under GST. Then we will discuss when it is mandatory under GST law to take ISD registration. Then we will discuss how ISD can distribute credit to various recipients as per GST law. Then we will discuss in brief what are the returns and compliances required for ISD registration. And in the last we will discuss what are the common mistakes and the benefits of ISD registration. Now let's start with the introduction of Input Service Distributor under GST. The concept of ISD is not new. It was already prevalent in earlier service tax regime also. So this is borrowed from earlier service tax regime. As per Section 261 of the CGST Act 2017, Input Service Distributor means an office of the supplier of goods or services or both, which receives tax invoices towards receipt of input services, only input services, including invoices in respect of services liable to tax under subsection 3 or subsection 4 of section 9, that is reverse charge, for or on behalf of distinct persons referred to in section 25, that is branches of the under the same PAN, and liable to distribute the input tax credit in respect of such invoices in the manner provided in section 28. So from the definition, there are three important points which needs to be discussed. First is ISD means an office of regular taxpayer who is supplying either goods or services or both, which receives tax invoices only for input services, and that office is liable to distribute that credit to distinct person. So this means, let's take an example that there is an office of there is a company who is having multi-state GST registration. Let's say that company is having GST registration in 10 states and the head office is there in the New Delhi, and that head office receives many common services which are pertaining to all the other branches as well. So that head office of New Delhi can take a different registration as an input service distributor. So after understanding what is input service distributor, now let's understand when it is mandatory under GST law to take ISD registration. If your company or business has GST registration in multi states, and if input tax credit for common services is required to be distributed, then ISD registration and compliance becomes mandatory with effect from 1st April 2025. Earlier it was not mandatory, it was majorly done by big companies, but now from 1st April 2025, because of a amendment in the definition of ISD and few other amendments which was done in budget of financial year 24-25, even if a company is having GST registration only in 2 states, and then also it becomes mandatory to take ISD registration from 1st April 2025. So now let's come to the most important topic. If let's say we have taken the the ISD registration, how will we distribute the input tax credit for common services? Distribution of credit by ISD is governed by Rule 39 of CGST Rules 2017. So there are few points which needs to be taken care while we are distributing credit as Input Service Distributor. The first point is that the ITC available with ISD for distribution in a month shall be distributed in the same month. Let's say we have received 1 lakh rupees as input tax credit in the month of April 25, then the ISD needs to distribute that credit of 1 lakh rupees to different recipients in the month of April 25 by filing GSTR 6. The second point is the amount of credit distributed shall not exceed the amount of credit available for distribution. So let's take the previous example in this case. The total credit received in the month of April 25 is 1 lakh rupees. So ISD cannot distribute credit of more than 1 lakh rupees. ISD cannot distribute the credit of 1 lakh 5,000 or 1 lakh 10,000. ISD can distribute the credit of only 1 lakh rupees. The other point is that let's take an example. If the input services are pertaining to a single branch, let's take an example that Delhi branch has taken input services of 1 lakh rupees and that invoice is received by the Input Service Distributor office of the company. Then ISD needs to distribute the credit of that 1 lakh rupees only to the specific branch, not to other branches. In case the credit of tax paid on input services are attributable to more than one recipient, that is, then the credit will be distributed in proportionate basis of the turnover of the recipients during the relevant tax period. So, in case the credit is attributable to a single branch, then the credit needs to be distributed only to that single branch. But if the credit is pertaining to multiple branches, then the credit needs to be distributed to those multiple branches in the proportion to their turnover of relevant tax period. Relevant tax period means the turnover of the previous financial year. In case the turnover of any of the branches is not there in the previous financial year, then the relevant tax period means the previous quarter, the preceding quarter of the current month, in which the turnover of all the branches are there. ISD needs to distribute the eligible credit and ineligible credit separately. So you might be aware that ineligible credit is that credit which is blocked under provisions of section 17(5) of the CGSTR. For example, the credit of food items, the credit of motor vehicles, the credit of personal services. The next point is the credit of ISG will always be distributed as IGST. The credit of CGST, SGST, UTGST shall be distributed as follows. In case of same state, the credit will be distributed in the same head. That is, CGST will be distributed as CGST, SGST or UTGST will be distributed as SGST and UTGST respectively. In case the recipient is from a different state, then CGST would be distributed as IGST, SGST, UTGST would be distributed as IGST, and IGST will always be distributed as IGST. So now let's take an illustration. In this illustration, let's take an example that there is a company ABC Limited which has a head office in Delhi and a separate ISD registration in Delhi only, and that company is also having 3 other branches in Mumbai, Bangalore and Chennai. The last year turnover is given below, and the company receives the following invoices on their ISD registration. The turnover for last year for Delhi branch is 10 lakh, Mumbai is 5 lakh, Bangalore is 15 lakh, Chennai is 10 lakh. So the total turnover of the company is 40 lakh rupees. So we have taken out the percentage turnover of each branch. Delhi is 25%, Mumbai is 12.5%, Bangalore is 37.5% and Chennai is 25%. So let's take an example of ABC Limited ISD registration receives invoice number 1, which is having taxable value of 1 lakh rupees and 18% GST. So the invoice is issued for services attributable to Delhi branch only. In this manner, because service utilization is only towards Delhi branch, the credit needs to be distributed only to the Delhi branch only. So in this case, credit of 18,000 will be completely distributed to Delhi branch of ABC Limited. Now let's take another example wherein the invoice number is invoice number 2. The base value of the invoice is 1 lakh rupees plus 18% GST. In this case, the credit is attributable to only 3 branches of ABC Limited, that is Bangalore, Mumbai and Chennai branch. So in this case, since the services are attributable only to 3 branches of the company, the credit also needs to be distributed only to these 3 branches in the proportion of their last year turnover. So in this case, credit will be distributed to Mumbai branch of 3,000 rupees, Bangalore branch of 9,000 rupees, Chennai branch of 6,000 rupees. The total credit will be 18,000. So the calculation is already given. So the concept is turnover of the specific branch divided by the sum of turnover of all the branches to whom the credit is attributable multiplied by the total input tax credit. So let's take one more example. In this case, invoice number 3 is of 1 lakh rupees plus 18% GST. In this case, the services are attributable to all the 4 branches. So the credit will be distributed to all the 4 branches in the proportion of their turnover, last year turnover. I hope you understand the distribution of credit through this illustration in a much better way. So now let's come to what are the returns and compliances applicable to ISD. The first is all inward ITC invoices for common input services must be declared and credit must be distributed through ISD invoices in GSTR 6. The ISD is required to file GSTR 6 on monthly basis by 13th of following month. For example, the ISD return GSTR 6 for April 2025 needs to be filed by 13th May 2025. And it is very important to maintain complete and proper records of credit received and credit distributed by the ISD on monthly basis. Now let's discuss what are the common mistakes which needs to be avoided when we are doing the compliance of ISD. First and foremost is accepting inward invoices of capital goods inputs in ISD registration. Please make sure you do not accept any invoices of capital goods or inputs in ISD registration. ISD registration is taken only for common input services and nothing else. Issuing regular tax invoices for credit distribution instead of ISD invoice. Kindly make a note that you cannot issue regular tax invoices if in case of credit distribution by ISD. You need to distribute the credit only through ISD invoice. Incorrect distribution of ITC by ISD without proper calculation. There is a specific rule given for proper calculations wherein the credit needs to be distributed only on the basis of previous year turnover or previous quarter, whichever is applicable in our case. Using normal GST registration for ISD activities, that is, credit is availed in normal regular GST registration for common input services and distributed through regular tax invoices. Kindly avoid this practice because in this way the credit may be denied to the recipient. And let's discuss what are the benefits of ISD. The most important benefit of ISD is that it ensures proper distribution of input tax credit to various recipients, helps maintain centralized control on services. So I hope we have covered each and every aspect about ISD registration. You may have different questions related to ISD registration which you can mention in the comments box, and we will try to answer each and every question in the which are raised to us. I hope you like our video. Thank you so much.